Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our Wednesday webcast. We look forward to meeting you every week at Wednesday afternoons. So on behalf of the Montessori Foundation and the International Montessori Council, I'm Kathy Leach. I'm your host today. And I am joined by the Montessori Foundation panel, which switches up every now and then. We have many people who log in and support us and support this conversation. And today's topic is about communication, and specifically communication during times of crisis, because we've had a lot of feedback that everybody needs some help with the messaging, how to do these communications, whether it be to parents, to staff, even to ourselves, I would venture to say. What our self-talk is part of this as well. So today I am joined by Christina Torres. Christina has been working very closely with us on our task forces. She's a former head of school in St. Croix, a grant writer, and has many, many other talents. So we're happy to have Christina here with us today. We're also joined by Jonathan Wolf. Jonathan, senior consultant with the Montessori Foundation, and just all around good guy. Lots of laughs. If you want to hang out for the laughs, Jonathan's your guy. Now, in addition to that, on a more serious side, and I say that totally joking because Dr. Dorr is here, and Dr. Dorr also can be a bit humorous. I'm sharing this all with you all today because before you all log on, before we open it up, I have to separate these two so they work well together. So Dr. Dorr, senior consultant with the Montessori Foundation, also does many courses with us, and is the author of The Deep Well of Time, as well as Hatching the Cosmic Egg, which many of you have had the pleasure of engaging with. It's quite an interesting book. And Michael's also working on some new courses and some other things. So also we have with us Christine Lowry, also works as a foundation consultant and does a lot of our courses and professional development, things like that, and has an area of specialty being inclusion and special education, and working with us in a variety of ways. So welcome, Christine. Thanks for being here. And last but certainly not least, our good friend and colleague, Tanya Reiskin, who currently works as the co-head of the Newgate School, our lab school in Sarasota, Florida. So in case any of you think that we are only theorists, indeed we are not. Indeed, we are constantly, every single day, working like all of you are to make sure we save our school and our schools. And so this is an ongoing work that we are all engaged with. So I just want to thank all of our panelists for being here today and all of our participants as you're still logging on. We are happy to see you. Some new friends and some regulars. Michelle Kemp, we haven't seen you in a long time. Happy to see you back today. And many of the people that we've been engaging with on a regular basis. So thanks. Today is going to be a very interactive discussion. Well, I say that assuming you are going to interact with us. That would be the goal. So if you could check on your control panel, the question box is about halfway down. If you want to write in questions, comments, suggestions, things that you're struggling with communication, or things that you've found particularly successful. So we're here to share ideas and really talk about this messaging piece and how we prepare ourselves and our communications, both verbal and written communications at this point. So I know many of our panelists have some real good insights into that, but if you do have questions to start, go ahead, I'll be monitoring that. And also we put in the handouts section 6 principles of adaptive leadership that we'll be referring to. It's taken from a Harvard Business Review article by Heifetz. I don't know if he had co-authors on this particular one, but Heifetz is Heifitz. And you can Google the whole article, but we do have a handout for you there to get us started. Okay, now I get to take a breath. And is there anyone who would like to open with some comments about communication? Yeah, Jonathan? Yeah, why don't you
Well, I was just jotting some notes down. I think as a school leader, I think first I want to take stock of my own consciousness. Where in whatever goal I'm shooting for, whatever contingencies I'm dealing with, whatever plans I'm wrestling with, what am I feeling about this? What are my thoughts? What are my mindsets? What do I believe, about what's going on inside myself? And then the next question is like, where is my staff? Where's the parent body? So first it's an introspection, taking stock of self. Then it's taking stock of the school community. And then it's what, at the end of this cycle of planning, or at the end of this process that I'm trying to put in place for my school, define the top of the mountain. What does success look like? What do the final indicators of success look like? So sort of, where am I? Where is my community? Where do I want my community to be at the end of this planning process? And just creating that sense of inquiry, which of course would include interviewing and surveying and polling a lot of other people other than ourselves. So, and touching base with other school heads to get their reference point on things, so we're not making decisions about communication in a vacuum.
Yeah, good points. Christine, when we talked, I think it was yesterday, you had some great insights into sort of how we prepare ourselves to communicate with others.
Did you say Christine or Christina?
Oh, sorry about that. Christine, because I'll call Stina. I'll call Christina.
Okay.
So,
so really following what you just said, John, preparing oneself to listen. And I feel like that requires, again, that going back to the self-reflection piece, and what part of my ego, what part of my agenda, what part of my needs might be getting in the way of my ability to, in a very open way, listen. Because I believe that all communication, ideally, begins with listening. And so it means getting in touch with our own feelings. There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear right now. And getting a handle on that so that we're not reacting to that fear, but that we're understanding that other people might have that or likely have it. So just that listening, just settling ourselves to be ready to listen.
Can I speak up there for a moment?
Please do.
John, I always appreciated that when you were speaking, one of the things that you always bring up is, what is the indicator that you've achieved the goal? What are our targets, and what are the metrics that surround the success of that particular target? I, on the other hand, as you know, although Kathy said, hey, we're practitioners here, we're not all theorists, but I am a theorist to a great extent. And I want to say a few words about why communication or language, most of our communication is language, why that's so important. And from Montessori standpoint, just so we can go back to grounding in Montessori, it is the only single thing that is a human tendency, a human need, and a sensitive period. There's no other thing that fits in all three of those categories. Now, we're past that sensitive period, but you never outgrow human tendencies and human needs. So the need, the drive, the absolute central focus of languaging, if I can make it into a verb, in communication, cannot be overlooked. And again, from this theoretical standpoint, or maybe it's the real standpoint, there are four elements that are really important. And of course, those are listening, speaking, writing, and reading. And there may be other things too, because mathematics is a form of communication and so on, but listening, and I put those in order: listening, speaking, writing, and reading. So that's all from our study of the child. But I don't think it lacks applicability to us. I think it applies to us just as well. We who all were children and continue to communicate in so many ways need to understand the importance of it and the importance of it being clear, sensitive, understanding, and following that very first step, which was listening. But don't forget that we also can speak. And as Christina and I were talking about a moment ago, write, and of course, read. So I just wanted to put my little Montessori theoretical bit in, as I often do.
Well, not to cut anybody else off, but Michael, you're the one who's really taught me about higher order thinking. So I'd like to propose a fifth, that with all of those different external relationship communication functions, you also have to be thinking and reflecting, which I think was Christine's point. What is my interpretation? Is it accurate?
Yeah, and that's sort of the preparation of who we are and what we think and what we believe before we speak, the intentionality of it, the consciousness of how are we going to frame this that, you know, gets the outcome, John, you were referring to. And I wonder, you know, as we look at the communication and taking the framework that you have set and looking at how do we communicate during really challenging times and times of uncertainty, times of fear, things like that. How do we take those basic principles and apply that to this time? Because what I'm hearing from a lot of school leaders is they're just at a loss for words. And part of it is that we really don't know what's going to happen next. And so, you know, how to be reassuring, how to stay positive, and be honest and transparent. And there's a big continuum of transparency. Do parents, for instance, and staff need to know every single thing you're dealing with? Probably not. But at the same time, we want to give them enough information that they feel informed. And so, you know, being really clear about our intention, I think, is such an important part of this. And that's the reflective part and the taking the listening that we have been doing and applying it to what comes next. As a head of school for almost 30 years, I can tell you that a lot of the communication was template based. It was repeated from year to year. I'd tweak it, I'd update it, but I could reuse some of the content, right, from previous newsletters, or how do we put out the next celebration, or what's going to happen at graduation and moving up ceremony. Yes, it was updated, but I didn't have to reinvent our values, our culture, our, you know, what we're putting out and putting forward. And now I feel like there's no template for this communication. There's no going back in the you know, emails and newsletters and saying, oh yeah, I can use that, because nothing apply. We've not done anything like this. We can do crisis communication, but this is really, we are trying to keep people feeling informed, but also feeling stable, reassured. You know, we have people that are scared, parents, teachers, and most likely our students will be scared when they come back, whether it be remotely or in person. So I just think that we have to acknowledge that this is decidedly different, but we should take the same principles and apply them to how we communicate moving forward.
Kathy, I just recently finished reading Daniel Siegel's latest book, The Power to Show Up. And he frames this in the 4 S's, he calls them. And that is, and he's right, the book is written for parents about their children, but I think it's very applicable to us as adults and to us in leadership roles who are working with a staff of people. And that first is safety. The second is, let's see if I can get them in order now. Safety, being seen and being heard, soothing, and allowing a feeling of security. And I find those 4 really interesting to this topic as we're looking at how do we support our staff while still acknowledging that we're all feeling uncertainty.
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Christine. And I just got his book, so I haven't read it yet, but I just get it because I love to read everything he writes. I think there's a lot of application outside of parents on this particular book. So I appreciate those. I wrote those down, and I think that can help us in this particular situation frame how we're communicating and what the outcomes and goals of that communication are. Yeah. Tanya, and I'd like to just remind everyone, please put your questions and our comments, because we really would love to address what are you struggling with communications, and how can we best help you and support you with that. So Tanya, go ahead.
Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. In addition to the frameworks and the theoretical, one of the trickiest parts that I have experienced, that I've always been conscious of and have taken to heart, but has been even more in front of me these past few months, is the timing of our communication. And I think that sometimes we want to rush to jump and get on the bandwagon of information, or we want to rush to jump to get on the bandwagon of information gathering, like surveys, when we need to pause and breathe and let our constituents, our stakeholders, our parents, our children absorb what they're getting from other sources. Because I'm not sure that in the ebb and flow of school communication, we are the source that they're looking at first. Certainly at different periods, like in the beginning when we first shut down, they needed to have constant communication because they wanted to know what we were doing and where it was going and things of that nature. So I think timing is very is one of the key aspects, or the bubbles that I keep looking at. Is now the time to do this particular communication? Because we've got 5 or 6 in the hopper, right? At any one time. We've got the back to school lists and the practical things, right? I mean, and then we've got the CDC just changed direction and we need to move this way things. And so I think that, and you can't, I also get concerned when I see communications that try to put too many fruits in the basket, like, just get to one point in one letter and keep it clean. Because maybe we're not. I'm going to say, I get a lot of information from a lot of people and places. I'm not in overload, but I'm in more load than usual.
Well, Tanya, am I cutting you off right now? Or you?
Yeah,
Okay.
we can.
What Tanya just said inspires me or makes me think, whose communication are we talking about here? It seems to me the largest number of Montessorians in our country or the world are children. They are the people that outnumber the teachers and they outnumber the adults. So we need to be talking about communicating from children, by children, and with children, intercommunication and intra-communication about these crises. I hope that's on our topic list. Second largest group are teachers and assistants. They way outnumber administrators, who in my mind are the least important cog in the communication because they are the minority by far. And unless the children and the teachers are involved, it's one-sided. And really it's three-sided, because then we have the administrators and leaders. But if we start with them, we create a top-down paradigm. And it has to be neither top-down nor bottom-up, but intra and inter communication among and between all of the people, all of those are what you call stakeholders.
Well, and Michael, just to nuance that a little bit, and one of the mistakes I made when I was a school head is that there's the timing issue of when I communicate this and how much do I communicate, how much can people take in, but then as Michael's raised, there's the population or constituency issue. So I also have to be thinking about, and what is it's maybe the same message about what's going to happen, but what is the language I use with different age children? And that's a different language that I'm going to use with parents. And that's a different language that I'm going to use with my staff. I cannot speak administrators' language. I need to speak the language that will resonate from the faculty. A real quick example, I counsel schools all the time. Do not talk to teachers about marketing and enrollment. Talk to teachers about, would you like to retain more of your students and get more support from your families? Oh yes, teachers will say yes to that. Teachers are not concerned generally about the business of the school. I've got to reframe the language according to the sensitive period of the group that I'm working with.
Yeah. I take a moment because we have a question about the book that Christine was referring to, and I've put it in the chat box. But this is the book, The Power of Showing Up, Daniel Siegel, and I wrote it in the chat box so you can get that book too, except it's not going in there. I'll figure that out.
I think you were going to mention something.
I was going to say, just to build off of what we were talking around about timing and messaging. And I think that, if communication was simple, we wouldn't, it's one of the most nuanced and places of leadership, right? And we have to recognize that. And so I think that part of what we were saying earlier about checking in on your feelings is so important in giving yourself a process for seeing, where am I at, what am I feeling. It doesn't have to be long. This can be a 1-minute thing of saying, I can tell you as head of school how many times I've gotten the same email or phone call over and over and over again. And to give myself a way of not on the 100th one, not saying, well, I sent the email or I called you, or this is the 10th time we've had that conversation, just to give myself a way of not responding inappropriately. So that is a huge part of it. But the other aspect that is so important that I have found, as head of school, even in consulting, or when I was I worked in communications at Ohio State University. And the number one conversation we would have with leaders was around, what's the purpose, right? Am I communicating so that the purpose and the message, right? So am I communicating because I need somebody to take an action? Is this purpose for them? Am I trying to build community? Am I trying to transmit information or send them somewhere? Understanding, or is it just so that people know I'm in charge, right? Because sometimes that happens, and it's important to call it out when that's a situation. Then there's your message, and then there's the vehicle. And it's really, as I think, as Montessorians and as educators, sometimes we forget, we put all this attention into our academic and our classroom spaces around language and preparation of self and environment. Take those same tools and apply them now to communications. And that's what I'm hearing around our relationship. Who's our audience? What's the language I use? And I loved what Tanya was saying around also not putting it all in. There's many times as head of school where I was like, okay, this is what's happening right now. Everybody needs this message. And something would occur unplanned where that great communication it just doesn't matter because there's something that's more urgent, and recognizing that that's where the rest of the community is at. And the last thing I'll say is recognizing that we are all filtering how we receive information through our experiences and our emotions. And during crisis, especially in uncertainty, we're defaulting on some of our not healthiest behaviors at times. And so recognizing that for maybe building up, that analogy of like water off of a duck's back, recognizing that as a leader, you're going to sometimes be receiving not people's best communication skills. So how can you build a structure, a way of dealing with that, I think is one of right now one of our urgent things because we're tired, as well as that's what your team is going to be going through in the next few months.
Well said.
I think a couple things, Stina, you talked about really reminded me of the fact that communication is two ways. Christine talked about it earlier with the listening part, but it also has to do with an understanding part. So if I communicate and you have no idea what I've just communicated to you, I haven't really communicated. I've talked at you or I've written at you, but I haven't communicated, because it has to be, we have to assure that other people are understanding the message that we're giving. So it really is about two-way, and it's about assessing for that understanding. How do we check to make sure that our message was received and understood in the way that we intended? And I think we have to be willing to be vulnerable to that and get people's feedback on, you know, what did you understand from that, or what's your takeaway? And we can assess that somewhat through the questions people come back and ask. Why did you send that out? Or why did you say that? Or you know, whatever it might be, or clarifying questions, we know that gives us feedback on what we might have missed in a nuanced way. So the two-way piece of this, I think, is an essential part of what we're talking about too.
I love that. And question asking is one of the best tools you can use as a leader to sometimes there's this instinct to answer. So then when somebody has a question, use your powerful questions, right, to unearth what it is they're really getting at.
So, John, you were going to say?
No, I'm in relation to what Christina and you just said. I'm finding more and more school leaders are applying in their communication and planning with their staff the 3-period lesson model we use with students. There's the presentation of the issue, the goal, the challenge, and there's a discussion where you invite people through questioning to really process that. What do you think about that? How do you feel about that? You know, what are our options? That's the 2nd period practice. And the 3rd period is, so do we all agree this is what we agreed to, and this is our action plan, and these are our assignments and responsibilities? That's the 3rd period of the lesson. In the sense of, if you don't have the presentation, the processing, and the action planning, things probably won't happen, or you won't get buy-in, or you actually may get people sabotaging things because you haven't taken people through a closure process, so to speak, and or related to an end set of actions that people have bought into.
Yeah. So I'd like to take a comment from Michelle Kemp here. She says, I think one of the hardest aspects of communication at the moment is talking to parents without having any answers or anything to tell them. They are desperate to know what is going to happen and what the plans are, but the information is literally changing by the minute. So it's very difficult to give them any clarity, which is frustrating for all involved. And I think that's really the root of why we're having this conversation today, Michelle. Thanks for adding that. I think that what I'm hearing from people is the information changes by the time I get it all outlined and I put all this time and effort into, you know, reentry plans, let's say, or the safety plans or the contingency plan. Boom, scrap it, because I just got an announcement from either my governor or CDC has updated something. Or half my parents have told me they only want online. They don't feel safe coming back, so that plan really won't work as much as I thought it would. So the changing dynamics of this and how to communicate, we're so used to, as school leaders, having the answers for people. And so getting to a place where we can live with the uncertainty and how to convey that without seeming like we don't know what we're doing, right? That we can be vulnerable and be leaders. Okay, they can both happen simultaneously. I think that's where the messaging is, and that's where this piece of what we're really trying to get to today is about. And I know you all have experienced this and have been hearing the same things I've been hearing. So I think Michelle just brought up the crux of the issue.
I think that it goes, I mean, I will share, you know, even though I'm not currently head of school, so when I was in hurricane recovery, you know, we experienced this where of course, we're in an area, there was so much that was unplanned that was happening outside of our school, and that directly impacted us. And I'll never forget, so we had shared with parents that we couldn't do something that we had done every year, and they had accepted it well. And about 6 months later, a group of parents pulled me aside to tell me how angry they were with me because we didn't do this trip that we had done every year. And same parents that had heard the message. And it came down because there was a resource that was no longer available on the island, and we were in St. Croix. And I struggled with, do I tell them that this resource isn't around? Do I, you know, and the thing is, I want to say, and there's no right answer, and I know that's unsatisfactory. But it's so important to focus on what's most important, right? During this time, which is you're not going to have every answer. So what's the least amount of information that is necessary to keep the school and the students moving forward? And that became my mantra around what is the information that we all need, our team, myself, to keep us as a community and to make sure that our children are safe and they are learning. And everything else, I laughed. I was like a Zen. You're going to find me floating in the driveway one day with that mantra. So it became something, though, where I listened and I said, I'm sorry, this resource wasn't available, but this is what we're doing, instead of this, so that to help address, it was a field trip we did every year. They loved it. We all loved it. We all missed it. But we found something to replicate. So we're going through that with my son's school. The secondary level takes trips every year. Parents are thinking about pulling out because they may not take a trip this September. Other parents are saying, well, we want to still do this, but what are you doing about the trips? And the school came back to us and said, we're thinking about how to do these trips in a different way. Maybe we'll do community service, so that there's still, the purpose of the trips was that the students were working together. The students were developing a community, and they reinforced that. And so go back to what's the purpose of why you are doing something, and that will reassure parents.
Can I just add to, I had a situation a number of years ago where we had to evacuate our building on an immediate basis, 125 students. We found out that there was toxic carcinogen mold in the walls, and had to get out. And it was very much the same thing. It was trying to succinctly and clearly communicate to the community of parents why we had to vacate the building. It was, this is what we're going to do on an immediate basis. We set up tent classrooms in our thankfully large play area. So we had porta potties, and all the toddlers learned very quickly that was more fun than wearing diapers. And we proceeded with tent school with ongoing communication about what we were doing to find a more permanent solution and location. And what I found during that time is that the people that had the most anxiety around that seemed to be calmer by having a piece that they could contribute. So if I had a family that came to me that was really, really, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? I could put them to work with, well, why don't you look in this vicinity of our area and see what's available for rent, and bring that back to me. And so different people had different jobs that they got to do. And that also contributed, I think, really well to people understanding, yes, there's uncertainty, but yes, there are things we can do to gather more information so that that uncertainty at some point will end.
Yeah, we have that giving people these alternatives is really important. I think it's Mary Beth that's on here today. Mary Beth Ricks says, I had the same complaint. Why aren't we going to Boston this June? My team and I created a virtual trip and it was great. So I think that, you know, again, what we're communicating, and Mary Beth is an excellent communicator. We need to have her on our panel coming up, but she really has a way to express clarity that's, you know, rare to see. And so I anything else you want to add, Mary Beth, we're happy to have you adding to the comments. But what I know is that when we over apologize for things and we come at it from our own guilt or feeling badly that we can't offer something, that message is what people hear. They hear the negative because we're hesitant and we're not sure and we feel badly about it. And if we can come to terms with, look what we're doing, that is really, this gives us a different opportunity. It's a unique opportunity. And you can be empathetic and recognize disappointment and give it its place. There's certainly place for disappointment. And at the same time, be really clear in ourselves that things happen for a reason. And so if we're taking a virtual trip or we're doing something different, this is an opportunity we may not have ever been challenged to seek out and to look and think differently, and adaptability and flexibility and all of these things. John?
Yeah, so one of the mistakes that I found I made under times of stress where I needed to tell people, look, we don't have an answer yet, is I would move to that honest communication before I empathized. So I think before we go, you know, we don't know what the CDC is going to say. We don't know how we're going to open. We're not quite sure what the format of our on-campus or online or combination learning is going to be. It's like, I so appreciate that this is a difficult time for you as a family or you as teachers not knowing what's going to happen. And then the imagination of all these permutations that may be equally stressful of what we've gone through. So I think we have to walk in other people's shoes and then say, and honestly, I don't know exactly all the variables yet. We're studying it. We're taking in the information, and we will get back to you with honest information as we get it. And then somehow within all of that, you have to project, but we are going to get through this as a community. So it's empathy, honesty, and immediacy of information, but we're going to get through this because we're going to work together. And then lastly, to Christine's point, well, let's get people engaged in solving the problem together and coming up with alternatives. So engagement, I think, is sort of the sequence after projecting competence. We can do this, and here's some things we can all do together to solve this.
Yeah, and taking the time to take care of ourselves so we can come at it, you know, because we have mixed emotions about this. None of us like this. We don't want to be in the position. We'd rather stay in denial. I mean, most of us, I think. And so, you know, we don't want to deal with it. So I think we have to get ourselves right first and then look at how do we share that. So I also have Denise Tuma. She says, I think there is some self-calmness, peacefulness in sharing that I do not know. However, we are thinking about this. So this vulnerability that we can honestly say this is really essential. And then I agree that you certainly need certainty. And I'm unable to, in this moment in time, provide specific details or a guarantee. And again, going back to Mary Beth Ricks and her clarity and conversation, when this first happened and people wanted all the answers and all the certainty, she said, my first responsibility is to make sure people are healthy and safe. I'll get to tuition later. I'll get to all the plans later. Just like, here's what I can answer you today, and doing it with clarity. Tanya?
Several points addressing intercommunication, interrelated communication with the children. I think this is a time where we need to practice. and help children, give them the language and the words they might be searching for. And so our listening skills with children are going to be need to be honed in even more acutely than before in observation, but to listen to them and to help them, as well as the teachers. Being in a room, a Zoom room with teachers, sometimes you hear them agreeing from different perspectives about different things because they're in different levels of language conferencing, they're so getting us on the same page of how we're going to approach it. Are we going to first talk about our feelings? With the same as we would do with children, in a community meeting? How are we going to address who we are, what we need to say, and why we're saying it? And I think that's going to be a powerful communication tool as well.
A great book.
Tanya,
Oh, sorry.
I just want to say, I really appreciate you bringing up those teachers and the children right there, because I think it's so critical. We've been doing a lot of talk about how we communicate with parents. The we, I take it, means school administrators. But the people that talk to the parents the most are their kids. And then the next group that often is approached by and talks with parents the most are the teachers. So in terms of priority, I agree with Tanya. We need to listen to children and also help them to put things in their own words in order to achieve a sense of safety, security in the school, to feel membership in a community, so that they can share that with their families, that confidence when they go home, because they will be asked, how did things go at school today? They're the ones that do most of that communication, but they need to be helped to be able to phrase it, to deal with it, to put the confidence into their language. And then the teacher, I think, is the one that has to do that to a great extent, has to be the one that's speaking with the children and listening. And they're going to be with the children more than the administrators, let's face it. That's their duty, that's their job. And their job, putting aside instruction, in this particular case, will be to help the children to develop those senses I just talked about: safety, membership in a community, and the ability to talk. And I think that teachers also need to strategize among and between each other as to messaging consistently from classroom to classroom, from level to level, so that the messaging, when it gets out into the parking lot and is shared with the parents, is not different from place to place and lost that way. The school leaders, I think, need to listen to both those two constituencies as well as the parents. They need to listen very closely to teachers reporting of what happens in the classroom or themselves be in the classroom, and teachers' own feelings and concerns and their need to be safe. It seems to me that the other thing that's been mentioned in one sense or another is the necessity at all those levels, and especially from the school administrator's point of view, checking for understanding. Did they really get what I told them something, or I thought I did. I wonder if they heard what I thought I said. And too frequently, as Christina brought up, you can tell them we're not going on that trip, but did they really hear that? And then they come back and they're upset about it. Well, that's important that we have that check for understanding. So again, you mentioned, Christina, the word mantra, which I like. And this is my mantra: the kids come first. So that's it.
Well, and part of that, I will say, just to build off, Michael, is that, and I had done some work in the summer leading up to, so not our first year after hurricane recovery, but our second year of recovery, because that's the hardest year, right? We've been going at it for so long. We're stressed. There's people coming in who haven't experienced it. So they look around, they're like, why is all this stuff broken? And you're like, well, there's no, yeah. So part of this is how humans respond to stress, right? So I spent my summer before going back into our second year really taking time to look at reminding myself and refreshing myself on what trauma and chronic stress do at all developmental ages. So what does this look like for executive functioning? So we're going to forget things more. We're going to be more tired. And you were hearing this a lot at the beginning of COVID, right? There's energy that we have, but it's so important for us to remember how humans behave and how they respond to stress, especially continuous stress. And then you're going to have people who have all various levels. I mean, I'm the first to say, I live in a community right now that is experiencing stress very differently than the community I lived in before. Um, we can't ignore that this is part of what's happening to our parent communities and our schools. So being aware of that, I think, will help you be empathetic, but also help you not take it on personally. Like I was like, oh man, really, I failed you, you know. And the reality is, I didn't fail them, right? They had heard it, but they forgot because we're all experiencing so much and it's changing very frequently. It made me more conscious to be shorter.
Overload. Tanya, go ahead.
So I have been recently reminded that pictures speak louder than words. I made a big mistake, and Mary Beth, I know you're listening, so I know you would give me a hug at this point. In one of our virtual community meetings with parents, we were talking about the plan and talking about procedures, and and a question was asked, are you going to have kids wear masks? And I thought I answered it correctly, that it would be a parent choice or a child choice. We are not going to mandate it. We don't have to. But then I did something that I thought was supportive of my comment, and that was I showed them a picture of the masks that I bought with the school logo on it. Very exciting. I mean, beautiful mask with the school logo. And within 4 days, I had 3 parents call me saying they were thinking of homeschooling because they absolutely opposed children wearing masks. And so the mask picture overrode anything I said. And I made the mistake. I'm going to own it. I'm going to share that as my Montessori moment tomorrow at my virtual community meeting with parents. But it was interesting how quickly people read the mask more than they read the words or heard the words.
Yeah, great point.
And
It's all about
Christina, I am so glad that you brought up the idea of chronic stress and it's being labeled trauma, right? Because we are all dealing with collective trauma. And everything that each one of you has said fits into that. How are we going to support children, parents, and faculty and ourselves with this collective trauma that we're all experiencing? And there, Kathy, maybe one day we can do a whole panel discussion about ways to begin to work with that. But
we
yeah,
will.
I mean, it's significant.
It is, and I will recommend, and I don't know if Michael Bourne's on the attendees, but one of the he and I both love Jim Collins' book From Good to Great, and it's about growth mindset. And he was much further along than me in it, something that every new person to Vimsia reads. That's a culture that he's their whole entire school. You can tell the language that they use. And I will say that as somebody who's proudly Greek-Rican, I had to work hard in my life there to develop some positive. It wasn't so the way that feedback is given in my family, it may be positive, but the language was not always growth mindset. So I had to spend a long time working on that. And I can, when I'm tired, default into that space. So it's one of the things that I really recommend. It's one of the things that I'm always constantly reading is looking at how do I frame things in a positive or in a growth mindset, or in other words, are asset based. It's not a deficit, So it's a opportunity. And it's not diminishing that there's challenges, that there's uncertainty, but the power of language is important. That's a book I would recommend, definitely.
Yeah, I'd like to take a minute to go to some of the comments from our participants today, and we really just have about 10 minutes left. First, and most importantly, Tanya, your hug is on the way, virtually from Mary Beth. So I had to tell you that. And back to Denise's comment earlier, she talks about, you know, how she's communicating and she doesn't have all the information, right? And she goes on to say, perhaps later in the month or next month, I'll have a better idea. So she's telling people, yes, this is an evolving situation. When I have more information, I'm gonna share more information. And I think that's an important message too. I'm not withholding, I just don't have it yet. And I will get there. And let's see, it's truly okay that I do not have all the answers, right? That, like, we have to come to grips with that. So thank you for that, Denise. Colleen Carlson, hi, Colleen. She says, I've also experienced that not communicating will leave a void that anxiety and fear will fill. So yes, honestly, what you know and what you are still seeking, and then asking for input. And she's going back to a comment made earlier about, I think it was Michael who was speaking. I think the admin isn't just the driver, but also the facilitator of communication. And so, you know, when we talk about the communication, I love, Michael, what you said, the people who talk to the parents the most are the children. Like, really? And are we, you know, Tanya talked to it too, are we really helping children understand what we're doing in a way that makes sense, developmentally appropriately? Because the messages they give to parents are clear, and are all the teachers using the same talking points, the same attitude, the same language to convey the messages? Have we, you know, really brought the troops together, and here is what we believe in, not just here's what we're going to say because it's politically correct, but here's our belief, here's our values, here's what we share and why we share it. Gives people the opportunity to say it however they want, but it's aligned and it's strategic. John?
Okay. Yeah, one of the things I think that's important for us to also keep an eye on is that frequency of contact with our people, whether it's, as Michael said, our children, our students, our faculty, our parents, our board. The frequency of contact is probably during these times more important than the content. So let's say hypothetically, I've said, well, I'm still researching this and I hope to get back with you in about a week and a half to see what the CDC wants to do, what our state wants to do. And a week and a half goes by and nothing has happened. I still should be back in touch with people and say, just wanted to touch base with you and give you an update. Even though you don't have any information of substance, it's the constant contact that creates the community, you know, in addition to eventually getting them answers.
Yeah, and if you've been trustworthy, I have to put this in here, because if you've been trustworthy and created relationships, people will trust your communication. And so, you know, that continuously building trust that, yes, I'll follow up. Yes, I said I would be here. I would communicate with you. And even though I don't have more information, I'm going to communicate with you. That investment is an investment in trust, in a long-term trusting relationship. So those are really essential pieces for us to keep in mind. In the last about 5 minutes we have here, let's see. Colleen says, 2 non-Montessori people I recommend, Lori DeSaltis and Michael McKnight. So tell us what you're recommending them for, Colleen. Maybe to be on our panel, or I'm not sure. So go ahead and let us know about that. Any other future topics? I know Christine has brought up stress and trauma as a continued topic that we want to talk about. I think there's a multi-pronged approach to that, because we can recognize that we're in stress and trauma and understand the physiological, spiritual, and emotional impact of that. But then there's also, what's the path out? You know, what's the path of how to get ourselves into some alignment with something that's positive and productive, and not depression and anxiety inducing. Jonathan?
Yeah, one of the things that Tanya has done really, really well at the Newgate School, and I know Mary Beth has done this at Bowman, is in addition to continuing to work on the evolution of the school, the next steps, you know, the plans, the problems, is you have to take time together and celebrate, whether it's sharing Montessori moments or having a staff party. You know, and Mary Beth, if you want to type something, and I've forgotten what the name of some of your fun events were, but they were just great. So there is also a time to just step back and go, but we're our school, and we're still going to share some great things that we've seen in the past and are seeing with students and staff. Like let's stay rooted in the core of our essence and our values while we are solving all these problems.
I love
And,
Mary
and
Beth.
every, oh, excuse me, Kathy.
I'm sorry. I was just going to
No.
say, I love Mary Beth's Wine After 9, because wine is
that's the one. That's the
W-I-N-E or W-H-I-N-E. That's one of my personal favorites. Tanya's
And-
done Date
Date at 8.
So Christine, go ahead.
I was just going to say, along with what John's saying, you know, I think if we just take a moment to realize we're all doing the best we can, and we're all working together for a common goal, and that is the child, the children. So we're going to make mistakes, we're going to trip up, we're going to have uncertainty, but our hearts are all in the right place, and that's worth celebrating, right?
Well, Christine, I think, as you know, and we've all talked about this, if you have to be a silver lining person, which I do, you have to see that coming together, what the Montessori community has done in coming together and sharing resources and being there for each other and reaching out and supporting has been phenomenally inspiring. And we are doing it for not only today's children, but we're doing it for future generations. And I think that has been, you know, just understanding the importance of the Montessori community and what our real value system is, that we do continue to reach out and share. And while I said there's no templates to go back to, there are new templates being developed every single day for some of these communications and plans. We're happy to share them with each other, share them with me. I'll put them out. We are sharing, we are creating a new crisis management, crisis leadership, crisis communication plan that we will forever be able to use. But it's about, you know, people helping people. And it's been a beautiful, beautiful, inspiring thing to observe. So here you all are volunteering your time and energy and expertise for the Montessori community, as well as all the participants that come on every week or when they can come on. We so appreciate it. Mary Beth has put in the chat, I have to tell you this, Wine and Wine every Friday at 4. The room parents had Zoom cocktails, so I guess with their classrooms. We also had a Monday coffee break to kick the week off. Do a lot of weekly parent meetings, which I know Tanya does, an open community meeting every week. We stated at parent support groups as well, yoga, crisis help, and parenting tips. So I know that many of you are doing some of these things. We have so much to learn from each other as we navigate this situation. And again, if you have future topics that you're interested in, just let us know. We're happy to respond and to bring people on. And I know Colleen gave us some names of some folks for books and writings and things and resources. So I've copied those, and you're welcome to take a look at those as well. So thank you everyone for a wonderful week. Please consider joining us for the Friday Town Hall on social justice and racism. That is at 3 p.m. Eastern time. It is open to everyone at no cost. It is recorded and posted in the Montessori Foundation YouTube and Montessori Foundation Conversations Facebook page. So all of that is out there for you to share. And check Montessori.org regularly. We have much going on, weekly meetings and events, as well as opportunities for consulting, for ongoing coaching if you do need help in the short term or the long term to kind of get you through this. And any one of the people here would be happy to help you, in addition to Tim, who's not live on our call today, but always willing to help and has a lot to share. So thanks everybody, and we will see you next Wednesday, if not on Friday. Bye. thanks, everybody. Okay, recording's off. And we thank everybody for being here, and thanks you guys. That, I think really was very, very helpful. And, maybe putting together a list of bullet points for folks on, here's some things to keep in mind might be something we could collaborate on and get out to folks. Because we talked about a lot of really good, I think, points that I wouldn't have thought of alone. So I appreciate the panel. Lots of thank yous, everybody.
Thank you.
I pass it on to you.
Good to see you all.
Good to see everybody.
Take care.
You all. Take care.
See you on Friday.
Bye-bye. Stina, you
Bye.
want to jump in my Zoom real quick? And I have a meeting, but I can take a few minutes and we'll do that real
Yep.
quick.
Check in on that. Yep.
All
I will
right,
meet
thanks.
you there.
All right. Bye, guys.